Good. Are you good?
I'm good. Are you good?
I certainly hope so.
All right. Is it light enough? Do you need to turn those lights on?
No, we are plenty bright, and remember, we go to black and white anyway.
True enough.
Except for the intro, which is always color, because, artistic
like
choice.
Sepia color too.
Yeah, it's a little blue. Okay, that's gonna go there. We are recording that. I am doing my typical narration of what I'm doing.
Excellent.
People can't see it. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Do you want to do the clap, or do you want me to?
I will happily go ahead.
Do it!
And action.
The sick clap.
My sick laugh. Yes.
Hello everyone. Welcome once again to Editing Academy. I'm Daryl.
I'm Laura, and as he alluded to, I am sick today.
Yes.
Powering through.
She's doing great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Laura, what's the year and what are the films?
These are the 5 films that were nominated for Best Picture in 1990 that were released in 1989.
All right, and they are?
Field of Dreams, My Left Foot, Dead Poet Society, Driving Miss Daisy, and Born on the 4th of July.
A very interesting mix of films for this closing out the 80s. And these are definitely 80s films.
Yeah, can I just say one thing about the
Sure.
films all together? So first of all, very much driven by performance. A couple of them especially are driven by performance. And also, I remembered having watched all of these in theaters, which is probably the first time that has happened. I've seen all of them, but I remembered watching each of these in the theaters, so that was very interesting.
I don't know if I saw any of these in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
All right, other notables that came out that year, and as always, I'm just condensing these to some that people will recognize because there's so many films that are being released these years or during this time.
Mm-hmm.
New York Stories, Always, again not nominated. War of the Roses, When Harry Met Sally, Henry V, the Kenneth Branagh version, which is amazing. Say Anything, Glory, The Abyss, Steel Magnolias, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, probably one of the better ones. Weekend at Bernie's, for some reason everybody's favorite cult classic. Roadhouse, another cult classic. Batman, the Tim Burton, who kind of reinvented the genre there. And then Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Weird Al Yankovic, UHF.
Interesting. Was this the year of Do the Right Thing? Because
I think that's 92.
okay, all right.
I could be wrong about that though. Don't quote me.
Nope, no worries.
I always go alphabetical, but I don't care. Where would you like to start?
Born on the 4th of July. Sounds
Fantastic.
good. Okay.
Born on the 4th of July, based on the 1976 autobiography of Ron Kovic, directed by Oliver Stone, written by Stone and Kovic, and it stars Tom Cruise, Keira Sedgwick, Raymond J. Barry, Jerry Levine, Frank Whaley, and Willem Dafoe. Nominated for a ton of stuff. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Screenplay based on material from another medium, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. And it won for Editing, and Stone won for Director. Tell me some interesting facts about this.
So I'm very proud of this fun fact because I found it myself and did not have to look it up. Is this movie employed 3 out of the 4 Baldwin brothers?
Really?
Yes. So Stephen Baldwin was a high school chum that they were talking about joining up.
Yeah.
Billy Baldwin was a soldier in Vietnam with him, and Daniel Baldwin was one of the veterans at the DNC when he was going to speak at the very, very end. So I was very impressed to pick those guys out. I was very impressed with myself, and I want to share it with the world.
All right. Any other fascinating facts? You usually have like 2 or 3. That's why I asked.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Born on the 4th of July. This is, again, Tom Cruise picking any project he wants and being able to do it. This movie, for me, takes a long time to get going.
Agree.
It's very slow in the beginning, and I get it. They're really hammering in the patriotism of Tom's character so that contrast later on is apparent. Personally, I think they hammered it way too hard and spent too much time on it. But I understand what the intent and the point was, but it just takes forever. The village scene, when they're actually in Vietnam, for me, way over the top, and most of that completely unnecessary.
Agreed.
They could have condensed that down, alluded to things without necessarily showing absolutely everything about it. The Vietnam scenes are fine, And there again, all of this is just set up to get him to be injured, to take the turn for what is what I call the real movie that happens here.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of that setup could have been like totally condensed down, and it would have still done and had the same effect for me.
I agree with that. I will say when I watched this, it is overall a better movie than I remember.
Yes,
because I remembered watching it and thinking, okay, so this is the Tom Cruise How I Win an Oscar movie.
Yeah.
And it certainly was that, no question. But there was more to it that I found enjoyable that we can talk about. But I think what I found was way too long.
Yeah.
Some of the scenes you got to the point and then they kept going. The two in particular was one of the mother and him fighting and the whole neighborhood coming out and hearing way too much, and then the other one was also the one that you pointed out in Vietnam too. I'd also say the prostitute in Mexico. I thought that was just a little bit too long.
Yeah, most of the scenes in this movie are just so heavy-handed, which I find surprising for Oliver Stone. I mean, he is a definitely in-your-face kind of director for his films.
Yep.
But this one was just, I need to hammer my point over and over, and it was too much.
Exactly. The thing that I did like about him that I thought that he did well was the transitions.
Yes.
So, like we've all seen before the newcomer into Vietnam and trying to get used to it. It didn't. It skipped time. It went from I'm patriotic to I'm now a veteran on my second tour. I liked that. You saw what was going to change his mind, and then it went from that moment to his mind has been changed and he's now acting on it.
Yep.
So I really like the fact that we didn't have to live through the transition with him. We saw what sparked it, and then he was there.
Yeah, I agree. The whole once he's injured and he spends all the time in the hospital, that to me is the most apparent when he starts his transition, because he is even though he's injured, can't move.
Yes.
He is still 100% patriotic. But the patriotism shifts a little bit. It's not for country. It's you need to give me the due that I deserve as a Vietnam veteran.
Yep.
And he was recognizing that unfortunately for a lot of the people in his situation, that is just simply not happening.
Yes.
And so you start to see he doesn't shift his belief, but he's starting to question, which he had never done before. And that is only because of his injury and then of course what he sees around him because of his injury. So I did enjoy that it wasn't just a sudden shift, like he's one way and now he's another way. There was information given to us, scenes that we could sit and breathe in to see that happen to him before the shift. Again, it was just a little bit too much over the head. Those scenes to me seemed like Oliver Stone making commentary on how we treat our veterans rather than just having the scenes of Tom seeing how the veterans are seen. You know what I mean? It seemed like he was pushing an agenda there, which is fine because I agree with that. But
yeah, but it was again like everything hammered it home. It's like okay, no, we get the point. And it was you saw his belief go from, and he said it several times at the beginning, love it America, love it or leave it, love it or leave it. And then he realized love it so change it is actually where he became.
Yep, and I fully agree with that.
Excuse me.
I like that they focused on his optimism until, of course, they didn't. That it did help with the contrast. Again, just very, very heavy-handed.
Because he was like, God and my country are going to get me through this. And then he realized neither of them were. Yeah. And so he had to get himself through it. And so you saw I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine. And then that huge drop in depression. And then he built himself back up again because he relied on himself. Yep. And I really liked that. And it was a stronger story than I remembered it being.
Particularly that last third of it. That's the strength of this movie is when he does actually start to change over. And he finds another community that is like-minded that he had completely disagreed with before.
And disregarded.
Right. Mm-hmm. But now that he's actually interacting and understanding what there is and he's experienced it firsthand, he does give himself fully to it. And they are a community. For the first time, he actually, like even when he was in Vietnam, he had his platoon and everything, but it was not a community.
No.
This is the first time he's ever been in a community, and he embraces that. I think that's part of the point. Once you have the community, you can give yourself over a little bit easier, but
and the whole he wanted to do the right thing. Even seeing what happened in the village, he tried to tell them what happened, and they weren't a community because they didn't want to listen to it. They were there to do a job, and sometimes bad things happen, and you just have to keep on trucking through. Can we talk for a minute about Kira Sedgwick and
Sure.
just how adorable she was? 'Cause she was perfect for that role. She was fresh-faced and innocent and sweet. And also you saw, kind of how naive she was as
Yeah.
well, and just, oh, you're not gonna come with me? Okay, I'll run up these stairs, and not realize why you're not gonna follow me.
Yeah.
Even though I'm fighting for you and I'm trying to do all the right things, I'm not going to understand you personally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. She was perfectly cast, and I'm sure that's partially why she was cast, is they wanted someone to play that young, naive,
Yes.
fresh-faced kind of thing, and she was absolutely perfect for it.
Yeah.
One of the things that this film does, and we can see it definitely later on, but this is Oliver Stone starting to play with the mixed media visuals aspect, because so many times in the movie that you're seeing an interview like it's on television.
Yes,
it is
yeah.
not like that straight 360 Panama
Yeah.
vision, whatever they were doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he was stuck, and he does it throughout. He does it a little bit early on, and then definitely a lot at the end. So you can see him start to play with the mixed media of presentation of film, which he goes full boat into things later on, like Natural Born Killers and things
Yeah.
like that. So that was interesting to see this
Early days.
Yeah, the early days of just playing around with it to see.
Yeah, nope, I agree. As a film, it was well put together. It was interesting. It was visually beautiful. The patriotism at the beginning that you see, and okay, I lied. I have another fun fact.
Oh.
Ron Kovic at the beginning played the World War II veteran that flinched in the parade,
Oh.
and that you later see Tom Cruise's character flinching when he's in his own parade.
Yep.
That was Ron Kovic playing a wounded World War II soldier himself.
I did not know that. Cool.
So I loved all of the patriotism in the parade and the imagery that he had, but it was just like went on for one beat too long.
Yeah.
Everything went on for one beat too long.
Yeah, it's just a lot of, like, Oliver Stone does know how to set up a scene.
Yeah.
But the overall, and I've had this problem with a lot of his movies, the overall presentation of the story, you just get weighed down in a lot of extraneous things.
Yep.
And I get it, but he does really like to hammer a point, which makes some of
Hammer
his...
points home.
Yeah. It just makes some of his films, while they're very good and well executed and perfectly framed, they're just not as enjoyable because the story just gets bogged down.
Yeah, the whole thing about Wilson and going to his family, I'm sure that happened, and that was part of Ron's life, no question, but did it propel the story that we were seeing forward? Was
Correct.
that necessary?
And we've seen this a lot with things that are based on real things. Like, they have to give the information of what actually happened,
Yeah.
but you can still, you don't have to tell everything. You can
Yes.
still make a good story of someone's life. You don't have to give all of the details of everything.
Yes.
You can tighten this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I just want to talk about with this is the ending did not work for me in this. It's just...
Oh, it absolutely ended, yeah.
And, I mean, it was almost like mid-sentence, too. Like,
Yeah.
it was almost like just quickly fade to black, and I don't know. I thought it was too abrupt. The information was there fine. I don't remember what the last line was, but I remember not liking the last line as an ending line of the film.
I think it goes to your last point about you don't have, when you're talking about somebody's life, you don't have to follow every point beat by beat.
Yep.
And also, this was his autobiography that stopped at the point that he stopped writing.
Mm.
So it feels like the movie just stopped because, okay, we are now at contemporary times. I don't know what happens next. And I think that's why it stopped there.
Yeah, I agree.
But that doesn't make it a good movie.
No, and it does not make it a good ending at
Exactly.
all. I did not like the ending, and I'd forgotten the ending, and then I saw it again and became mad.
Okay, good deal.
That's all I really have. Like I said, Oliver Stone is a very good director. He just hammers points too heavy and spends too much time in moments. He needs to cut that in a lot of his movies. In this one in particular.
One more point, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up, was the music.
Yeah.
I actually, so I had the little cassette of this soundtrack because it's half of the score, and then also has half music, which starts with goes from like Moon River, very, kind of sweet of its time, and then it goes into Buffalo Springfield, and then it goes into Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, and so it's just, it's just interesting. It's all the perfect touchstone songs from that time. But I really did like the score.
And that is a strength of Oliver's, is being able
music.
to interweave music in, whether it's contemporary or something from the past. The music does enhance the mood of whatever he's trying to do. And you're right, I should have mentioned it, because particularly when I saw this, I was madly in love with Edie Brickell.
Oh, yeah, right,
So,
yep.
Anyway, okay.
She's still married to Paul Simon?
Yep, they have...
Oh, nice.
I know they have one child, they might have two.
Oh, that's lovely, okay.
move on to Dead Poets Society?
Let's do it.
Okay. Dead Poets Society, directed by Peter Weir. And I'd forgotten that Peter directed this one.
Oh, did you?
It is kind of outside of his norm, in a
Oh,
way.
I have a story about that, so
Sweet.
keep going.
Written by Tom Schulman. It stars Robin Williams, Robert Sean Leonard, Ethan Hawke, who was a baby, Josh Charles, Gail Henson, Dylan Cussman, Alalon, I'm probably mispronouncing that, Ruggiero, and James Watterson. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Screenplay, and it won for Screenplay for Tom Schulman. Go with your friend.
So the fact is that they actually hired another director to direct this movie, Jeff Kanew, Kanew.
Okay.
The studio kept moving forward, assuming Robin Williams was going to be in the movie because they know he wanted to. They wanted him. He didn't want to work with this director.
Oh.
And so they didn't have anything signed, didn't have any contracts, and they're like, oh, we'll just keep moving forward. Well, Robin didn't show up on the first day of production, and so they had to fire the director. That director wanted to work in Atlanta, and they had all the sets built, ready to go. They had to burn them all and moved the whole production to Delaware, because that's where Peter Weir wanted to film.
Wow.
So, quite a thing.
I'm a little surprised by that because I've always heard that Robin Williams was an excellent person to work with, very collaborative,
Yes.
did not have beef with people, so that does surprise me.
Well, apparently he never said yes or no, so that's why they're like, we'll just keep going, because he didn't want to say that he didn't want to work with this guy, but everyone around him knew he didn't want to work with him, so he just decided not to show up.
Oh, interesting.
So it wasn't a sit-down strike, it was just more of a, I don't want to do that.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, this movie, little kind of background. This movie seems to go up and down throughout the years. Like it has its peaks and resurgence, and then it falls away, and people tend to criticize the hell out of it, and then it kind of comes back.
Yep.
From what I was doing online, we are in one of those moments where it's on the rise again, but there is still a ton of criticism placed at this movie, which
Okay.
always surprises me a little.
Okay.
I personally like this movie, and I went in, I don't love it, but I really, really like it.
Yep.
And I went in, fingers crossed, being like, please, please, please hold up, please, please hold up. And outside of the things that we're now aware of in 2025, like the fact that this is all just a bunch of white boys in a privileged area, but that is the story that is being told. So outside of that, I think this movie still completely holds up. All the things that are happening in this movie are even still relevant today. And I like the themes that are played with. And I love, and we'll get to this in more detail, but I love the ending of this movie. It does not shy away and give you the nice little happy, everybody's going to be okay moment.
Okay, interesting. I also went in liking and not loving this movie. Really, really liking it. Fingers crossed that I would still like it because I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah.
I had trouble getting into the headspace of 1989 because every time I saw Robin Williams on screen, it made me sad. Just because this was peak Robin Williams.
Yeah.
He is so charming and handsome and funny and just everything about him. He was a national goddamn treasure. And so I actually I had a really hard time with that's a character and that's a teacher instead of that's Robin Williams and that makes me sad. That said, I kind of put it on a shelf and I'll talk about the movie as a whole, but because of Robin Williams is why this movie works or doesn't work.
Yeah,
I think.
the supporting cast is great. They all fill their roles, but no one's a real standout person. Even the lead young boy doesn't really stand out that much. But they all fulfill the roles.
Absolutely, and they're all very unique. They did a nice job of. Not all of them got a lot of time, but everybody filled out not a caricature, but an archetype.
Yep. They were distinct enough from each other that you knew, or you could guess what someone's actions was going to be. Like the redhead, you're not surprised that he's the one that snitches at the end. They were defined enough that you could follow their individual journeys, and they were separate enough.
Yeah.
What I've forgotten about for this movie is later Robin Williams movies, outside of Good Will Hunting, he just goes over the top.
Yes.
And he was very restrained.
So subdued.
There's only a couple moments in the classroom where he does his little things, but we know later movies he just goes
this is
off.
Doubtfire. Yeah, and the scene where he is doing Marlon Brando doing Shakespeare, that is Robin Williams. That is not on the page anywhere.
Yeah.
That's just him being him and perfectly him being him, and everything else was, and again, he was charming and sweet and really wanted these kids to do well, this character, but I had a really hard time seeing that beyond Robin Williams.
That's unfortunate because a barrier like that does obviously influence the way you then see the film.
Yeah, and that's a me problem entirely, and I know that. Yeah.
there are a couple things that I want to talk about. I mean, I guarantee most people have seen this movie, and whether you like it, whether you don't, people are very familiar with it. But there's a couple things that I want to talk about and get your impressions of. One, I thought personally the flawed relationship father and son, I thought that worked.
Oh, I thought it was very realistic.
I did. It was not Oliver Stone hammering over the head. There was like you get a hint of it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Then you get a little bit more of it, and then you get a little bit more of it, and then you get a lot of it. And I even liked, even though he was a bastard, I even liked that they put in a scene where right after the play, and he brings his son home, and they're having a moment, and his father genuinely asks him, "How do you feel? What do you want?"
Yes.
And he can't answer. I believe he can't answer because of all of the had been pushed down for years and years and years.
He doesn't have the ability.
But his dad does give him the chance.
This is a father that cares about his son, that loves him desperately, that wants him to succeed, that wants a better life for him than he himself had.
Yep.
And thinks that there is only one path and there is only one way to make this happen.
Correct.
But which is what makes it all the more tragic, because at the end, when he finds his son, that's just grief. That is just raw, stripped grief. And I really enjoyed that relationship, and I didn't think it was over the top, especially for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And also I want to get into this was a rather timeless movie. I mean, you knew it was set in the 50s, early 60s, but not really. Like, this could be, you take away cell phones, and this could be any kind of New England prep elite school.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. Mm-hmm. There is a timeless element to it, even though it is set in a time.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
We talked about the principal characters all being fully developed.
Yep.
Like, even Cat Poem Guy is developed, so that when, like, even though he's...
Even who?
The guy who does the Olympics.
I
call him Cat Poem
Okay,
Guy.
I know who you mean now.
The character's name.
Okay.
But even he, at the end, you are happy when
Wait, was that Swedish? I don't remember Cat Poem.
When he stands, you're like, oh, thank you, Cat Poem Guy.
Yes.
That was awesome. Thank
Yes,
you.
like you're not in the immediate fold, you're not in the center fold, but also you appreciated that teacher and what he brought. And yeah, I liked it when he stood up as well. Ethan Hawke was really good in this performance. Like, you could see early visions of why he's such a good actor now and why he did such a good job. And that scene between him and Robin Williams where he spontaneously came up with a poem looked like he was spontaneously coming up with a poem. And I know that was scripted. And for Ethan Hawke's part, it was scripted. I think Robin Williams might have, taken more liberties with it.
So, I do want to talk about that scene now, because that moment is such a huge, important moment for Ethan Hawke's character.
Yeah.
But in today's society, a teacher couldn't do that.
Oh, absolutely not.
They could not push that person.
No putting on hands.
Well, not only physically, but mentally helping him push through that boundary.
Yep.
A teacher would get in so much trouble for pushing that far these days.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate, because that character, and it was built, needed that moment to have someone push him through, to go through those boundaries, to get to the other side, because he couldn't do it on his own, and the only way he was by being pushed by the teacher.
Exactly.
And I just find that unfortunate.
It's why we can't have nice things.
Yes.
It's because people in positions of power have taken it too far, and so therefore people with good intentions in places of power can't now.
You're right.
So,
I mean, I understand it. I get it.
It's unfortunate.
It's just so sad.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally understand that.
I do like how Robin's character was written and then acted out. He is genuine in his wanting to connect. He finds I'm not even going to call them unorthodox, just different ways of being able to connect with the students, and he does. He connects with most of them.
The far majority of them.
But what I also like is that it is not a 100% fulfilled connection. You don't see the end results. You see people standing, and not everybody in that classroom stands. There are like 7 or 8 that still sit.
Right.
And then I'm just going to jump into the end.
Okay.
When he is kicked out and they all are doing their standing thing, they're doing it for him, but he is still fired. He still leaves.
Yep.
There's no redemption. And you don't know, you have an understanding that because of his inspiration, those that did stand are going to go on and lead the lives that he was talking to them about. We don't know, because
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're going to kowtow to their parents because they're fucking cowards. Because too little, too late, you ruined Robin Williams' life, and get out. Cowards. I hate them all. But anyway, what were you saying?
Well, that's kind
Sorry.
of goes into my point. It is an unfulfilled connection.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly what is going to happen. Hopefully, some of them will. Ethan Hawke's hopefully will go on and live the kind of life.
Play that scene with their fathers in the room.
Oh, none of that would have happened.
None of that would have happened.
I 100% agree.
That's
Again,
what disappoints me.
unfulfilled connection.
Yeah.
There was a connection, it's just unfulfilled.
Right. Yep, totally.
So, as I was watching it this time, knowing some of the big themes, and Robin, his character as a teacher, addresses them in the very, very beginning. Why is poetry important? You're going to go be a banker. You're going to go be a lawyer. Why are these kind of things important? Because it's the stuff of life. So you have all throughout, and it's particularly played out with the character, with his father and son, the idea of capitalism and having a good job versus your own individual freedom and life.
Exactly.
And these two play out. And the end, it's not fully defined, but capitalism kind of wins at the end.
Capitalism wins, and despite my tirade, I do think that he has planted a seed in these kids that they will be thinking for themselves. They may not always be able to act on it, but they will understand the importance of being able to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And know that sometimes they're going to have to stand up, and it's going to be very difficult. And they're not going to be able to stand up some of the time, but again, they're kids. Maybe later in life they will be able to.
I'm just saying, cat poem guy stands. Just saying.
He sure does. Good for him. And he wasn't even part of the group.
No, he
didn't
wasn't.
sign anything.
That's why his standing is all the more important to me and does give me a glimmer of hope, because he was not part of the circle. He was not part.
Yeah.
He was not part of Dead Poets Society. He was on the outside. He rebelled against all of this stuff throughout the entire interaction.
Yeah.
At the end, he does stand.
All right, so maybe he's the guy that gets there. Maybe he's the guy that gets there. I would like that. But yeah, it was clearly a breakthrough for Ethan Hawke to stand up, to be the first also to break away from the crowd. Because even when you think about that exercise of everybody walking in step and clapping, he is the first person to break away.
Yep.
What did you think? Speaking of which, one of my favorite characters was the one that brought the girls to the cave and painted his face.
Rwanda?
Something like that. And maybe it was Rwanda. And he was just who he was. And he punched the other guy. He never named names. I just really liked him.
Yeah, he was one that I think that all of this was within him already. He just needed the permission to express it.
Yeah.
And once he had permission, he was just like, fantastic, this is me.
And then he took it too far because it wasn't, because then it wasn't for the greater good anymore. It was just to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that again, like Robin Williams was pushing everyone else and he was pulling this kid in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. I did like his character. He was given the permission. But again, he's like a 16, 17-year-old kid. Of course he's going to go too far because unfortunately, boys that age are dumb.
Exactly. This is true.
I don't have a lot. I was just happy that it brought back the same memories and that it still was able to stand up for me, because this one is a precious movie.
I agree, and I agree with you that the ending was the correct ending. It ended the way it needed to end, given the time frame, given the kids and where they were, and it does give you some hope. But also people talk about this being an inspirational movie, and that annoys me because it is not inspirational. It is maybe aspirational, but it is not hopeful to me. No,
the movie is definitely not hopeful, but I can understand how people would say it's inspirational, because by watching this, then I started to look at myself and what are the things that I could do to live my life. And you're right, that's more aspirational than inspirational, but just
definitely.
Terminology.
Did you learn the term carpe diem out of this movie?
I did. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I think I did. Yep. So, carpe diem.
All right, I'm so glad this held up.
All right.
Anything else on Dead Poets?
Nope.
Driving Miss Daisy?
All right. Sounds good.
Driving Miss Daisy, directed by Bruce Beresford and written by Alfred Uhry, U-H-R-Y, based on his 1987 play. Film stars Jessica Tandy, Morgan Freeman, Dan Aykroyd, a couple others, but that's fine. It was nominated for pretty much everything. Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Makeup. It won for Makeup, Adapted Screenplay, Tandy won for Best Actress, and it also won for Best Picture.
So Morgan Freeman actually originated the role off Broadway.
Yeah, I did know that.
Yep, and the woman who originally played Miss Daisy, was an actress named Dana Ivey, who we saw before she played Oprah Winfrey's boss in The Color Purple.
Okay.
So you can remember her.
Yep.
And also, Booley's wife was never a character in the play. They wrote that part for Patti LuPone.
Really?
To which I say why, because she was not really that rich in it, but okay.
No, the kind of point of her character was just to be a contrast to Mom.
Yeah.
But she didn't really fulfill any roles. Well, that plus the fact that she was not Jewish and was consistently bringing in.
Oh no,
Christian
she was exceptionally Jewish. She was assimilating.
Oh.
Yeah. She
Really?
said, yeah, she said there's a comment made about something about her nose. Basically, she's like, if I had that nose, I wouldn't try to pull off a Christmas party.
Oh, that's
Something
right,
like
Jessica.
that. Really offensive.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
So no, I thought maybe I read it wrong, but I thought she was.
No, I
quite
think
Jewish,
you're right, and I just missed it because of how hard she went into the assimilation. Okay.
Yeah. So interesting. So that's kind of pretty much what I've got. That's it for the fun facts.
All right. This one, to me, the premise is very, very simple, but it's
Yeah.
also effective. The premise just sets the tone for the whole movie, and it gives you the plot of the whole movie, and you kind of know where things are going to go. You know there's going to be highs, you know there's going to be lows. You kind of have a feeling of how it's going to
Yeah.
work out. But all of that still becomes effective as a movie. It was just very predictable. Even the first time that I saw this, I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I don't know when everything is going to happen, but I know what's going to happen.
Exactly. The thing about this movie, and in revisiting it this time, is like, you know what? This movie gets too much crap. It really does. It's a lovely little movie. It's maybe not a Best Picture movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Hints for later conversations, but it gets too much crap. It had really good, solid performances. It had kind of a interesting message because, you know, much like the other ones that we've talked about, the ending is very complicated. The ending is there's no buttoned up happy ending in this movie. Interesting was the Morgan Freeman the way he performed almost for the family. The things that I didn't like about the movie were the things that I was supposed to not like about the movie.
Yeah.
Like his whole aw shucks, you know, like laughing, kind of playing a performance for the family while he is negotiating a better salary and negotiating a car deal with a car dealership. Like, this is a very smart, savvy man that is being treated like a child and that is being treated lesser than, and he's playing into it because it serves him well.
Yeah.
You know, he's smart. But it bugged me.
But yeah, I do like that it didn't try to hammer any sort of points home about racism, whether it was against the Jewish folk or against black people. It was just, this is the world, and every once in a while you're reminded, like this, the synagogue blows up, their temple blows up.
Yeah.
The fact that he, when they're taking their voyage and he gets pulled over on the side of the road because he's a black man driving a vehicle for no other reason. Like, there were moments, but they were not hit over the head and they were not explained away either.
Yeah.
They were just, this is what it is. And I like that the film did that. I didn't like some parts of it, like the aw shucks kind of character. I got that was necessary for that role.
Yeah.
But it is, for an hour and a half, that is just, it gets tiresome.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Interesting about the piece where the cops pull them over. I thought that was a very interesting scene because you can see right away he's nervous.
Yeah.
He knows this is not a good thing. She's not nervous. She's like, I'm an old rich lady. I'm fine. And then she realizes pretty quickly, like, they're not thrilled with her either.
Yeah.
You know, that they're not thrilled with the Jewish lady either. So the cops are not really happy with either of them. And they're both in very similar, in similar situations sometimes, when they are both being othered.
Yep.
And yet the rest of the time, 98% of the time, their worlds are so very different, and how the world sees them is very different.
I did like also that it, again, touching on some of those things, when she goes to hear Martin Luther speak, and she does not invite him, even though she is inviting him, she doesn't say it, and he recognizes that and calls her out for it.
Yeah.
And throughout the entire thing, and you do believe her when she says, I've never been racist, I don't have a racist bone in my body, and you believe her.
Yeah.
But she is also very much a product of the time.
Yep.
So that she, even though she may have wanted him to come to see that, because of their dynamic and the person that she is, she can't come outright and ask.
No.
Even though she would have preferred he be there, she can't come out and ask. For this moment that would be so important for him.
Absolutely. She grows to the extent she is able to, given her age and the way the world is fit. I thought, going back to the Jewish versus, Morgan Freeman being a person of color, looking at Dan Aykroyd, who I thought was terrific.
Yeah.
But Dan Aykroyd can hide the fact that he's Jewish.
Yep.
And Morgan Freeman obviously cannot hide the fact that he's black. So I thought that was really interesting, is just like they are both seen as other by, the white Protestant world that they live in. One can hide in plain sight and the other one can't. And therefore their worlds are very, very different.
They are.
Yeah.
There is understood rules, even though I don't think any of those family members would enforce those rules, but they are embracing those particular societal rules that exist. They're all operating on that.
Yeah.
I do have one question for you, and I don't know how I land on it, so I'm curious how you think about it. When she has her dementia episode,
yes,
and she's running around looking for the papers for her schools, and then Morgan follows her upstairs, she sits in the chair, and then she seems to come out of it and says, "You're my best friend."
Mm-hmm.
I can go both ways in this one.
Okay.
Part of me fucking hates that.
Okay.
And the other part is like, okay, I can understand. I don't like that the moment happens just after a moment of dementia. I think that lessens it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that scene should have absolutely happened because it is true, but it should have been handled differently. She shouldn't be in a moment of just either coming out of a moment of dementia or just over a moment of dementia to make such a statement, because you can then you could interpret it that she's still in one and she doesn't know what she's saying, and that's wrong.
So I go kind of halfway with that, because I think in a way she doesn't know what she's saying because she would never say that to him. It is a true fact, and I think she feels that way. But in their world, she would never say those words to him. So I think the dementia opens her up to be able to say her true feelings. So I think it's true, and I think that she would never say that if not for the mindset that she is in. Yeah. But he never says it back.
No.
Because she's not his best friend.
Correct.
Yeah.
But he does recognize his value and worth to her and freely does give that. Otherwise,
absolutely. He cares deeply for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. He wouldn't be going to the home at the end of the movie if he didn't.
I agree with that completely.
But maybe he would, because he's still getting paid.
He is. So the interesting thing about that is because a lot of folks that were paid that were domestic servants or domestic help can't pay into Social Security, and so therefore they could never retire, and so a lot of kindly families would continue to pay a domestic servant that had served their family well long after they stopped serving them.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I think yes, he could still be being paid to be with her. I think it's more Dan Aykroyd still pays him because he has no other retirement. He has no other income coming in.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
okay,
because that's a thing about domestic servants in the South, couldn't retire.
Okay. That's good information. It does change that a little bit for me then.
And there is a lot of talk too about parent-child, or maybe not parent, but child relationships. You know, that she is treating him like a child at the beginning. He then stands up and is like, I'm not going to let you treat me like a child when I have to go to the bathroom. And then at the end, he's feeding her like she's his child. And I just, a lot of that kind of children motif.
Absolutely. And that's a good kind of attention to detail, bringing the theme all the way through. Another one that they did well, and I don't know if this was the story or the director, but the use of vehicles to show the passage of time.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was a very clever, nice way to know that time has passed, because he's pulling into the driveway in a brand new vehicle.
Yeah.
And, they established the pattern that Hope's character buys whatever the old vehicle is, so he's getting a new vehicle every couple of years too, but they used one. But that was just a nice way to show the passage of time, is driving up with a new vehicle. I liked that as a choice.
Nope.
So there were moments that were quite brilliant, but overall, it's just a good little movie.
It's a good, sweet little movie that I would love to see as a play.
Yeah, there's a version of it online that is super popular that has James Earl Jones in this role.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I think he did the Broadway revival, if I'm not mistaken.
He may have. I don't know.
Okay, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else for this.
All right, sounds good.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
All right, Field of Dreams. Written and directed by Phil Alden Robinson, based on Canadian novelist W.P. Kinsella's 1982 novel Shoeless Joe. Film stars Kevin Costner, Ray Liotta, Amy Madigan, James Earl Jones, Burt Lancaster in his final film role. Was nominated for Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Original Score. Did not win anything. Okay.
All right, I've got 2 fun facts. One of which is, so Burt Lancaster was Moonlight Graham. It was originally offered to Jimmy Stewart, who is my favorite, and it actually breaks my heart a little bit that he turned it down, but he had already retired from the movies at that point. I think that would have been interesting, but I also think Burt Lancaster nailed it.
Yeah,
so
he did nail it.
I would like to see Jimmy Stewart in it, but I actually, believe it or not, don't know that he could have done better.
Yep.
Second is that final shot of all the cars that are down the road.
Yep.
So that was set up by the Iowa Chamber of Commerce. 1,500 local people showed up and lined this whole miles and miles and miles of road, sat in their cars for hours, and kept flicking their high beam to their low beam to look like they were in traffic. They're stationary, except for the ones that are actually moving right at the field.
Yep.
The rest of that line of cars are stationary, lined up, and just flicking their lights.
You know,
so it looks like traffic.
I never even would have thought about it because my modern day brain was like, oh, that's just CGI or some sort of effect. But that's awesome.
1,500 local Iowans.
That's really cool.
Very cool.
All right, this film. This is probably the 4th, maybe 5th time I've seen it, and I always forget how enjoyable the movie is because of the ridiculous premise that this movie has.
Oh yeah.
And this is a movie where if you have to buy the premise. If you do not buy this premise, it is not going to work for you.
Yes.
The thing that I don't like is that you have to consistently rebuy the premise over and over and over again, so it does become kind of tiresome to be constantly said, oh, but now you have to believe this too, you have to believe this too, you have to believe this too. That's just tiresome for a movie.
Okay.
Having said all of that, I really enjoy watching this movie.
Fair.
Never have been a huge Kevin Costner fan. He is above average, I will say, for this. He doesn't do a fantastic, stellar job, but I think he is well cast, and he does more than what was required of the role.
Yep.
And I think that can be said for most of the people in this. I don't think anybody is outstanding, not even James Earl Jones, who I love, but everybody is above average.
Okay.
They fulfill their role. You possibly disagree with me. I can see it.
I thoroughly disagree. No, I don't actually disagree. I had to look at this. So this is one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
Not top 20, obviously, but it is a movie that brings me great joy. And so I had to, much like Robin Williams, step back and be like, okay, I got to look at this as a movie and how well it's put together, not just how much I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I would say Kevin Costner, I think at this point was probably the height of his charmingness.
Yeah.
He looks at as peak 1989 beginnings of a mullet, feathered hair as you could possibly look with his tucked in acid wash baggy jeans.
Yeah.
And so I thought he did a very good job. I thought he did a nice job, and I think there were probably other actors that could have played that role, but I thought he did it well. Amy Madigan for me was the standout. Because we saw her not long ago in Places in the Heart, and thought she was such a stick of wood in that movie.
Yeah.
And in this one, she was passionate, understanding, not a pushover. She was like, okay, you need to do this, we're going to do it. And then she was like, okay, you got to stop doing this until I start to hear the dreams. So I thought she was actually a bit of a standout. I liked her passion, and she was not just the wife, which I think is a very easy role. Without her, this role could have been the wife.
Yes, and I 100% agree, so I will revise my statement. You are correct that she was the standout as far as performances in this one. Absolutely 100%. And you are correct. A lot of other actresses, particularly of this time, would have just come in and be like, oh, I get it, I'm just the supportive wife. That's all I'm going to be.
Yes.
And she was absolutely not. She was a supportive wife.
Yeah.
100%, but that was not all she was.
Exactly. Yep, I totally agree with that. I liked the theme of the movie. I agree with you. You had to absolutely put reality at the threshold before you walked into this movie. But I liked the theme. I liked the theme about family and unfulfilled dreams and, just what could you do if you had all the dreams in the world? What would you do if you had the ability to go back and revisit something you regret? You know, what is it, like I thought the whole story about Moonlight Graham was such a sweet kind of like, it just layered over the top of the main story of, here's a guy, he just wanted his once at bat. He just wanted once at bat. It was being a doctor that fulfilled him. And he was happy to go back to that, to go back to his wife, to go back to his happy family. But he got to live that one moment. And the same thing with Kevin Costner, is he wanted to play catch with his dad. I mean, like he regretted that all of his life, that he turned him away, and he wanted that one moment. And it's such, like, this is a huge movie. It's an epic story of, fantasy. But if you drill it down to a one moment in each of these things that is important to somebody, it's like, what is that moment in your life that you would have back if you could?
Right, and all of them get to fulfill that because of this.
Right.
My issue is that you constantly have to re-buy into it. Like,
yes.
When he goes and finds James Earl Jones' character, and they have to go to Wrigley Field, and then so they're waiting for a sign there, and they get it.
They go to Fenway.
Oh, sorry, Fenway. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're
I
right.
just
You're
can't
right.
even. Okay.
I'm not a baseball person, but I know Fenway from Wrigley Field. I do. I've actually been to both. But so you had to re-buy it there, and then you have to buy the transition of Kevin Costner just walking down the street, and suddenly it's the 1970s. You have to buy that he just turns a corner, and suddenly it's that.
Yes.
Like, that's the part of this movie that bothers me, is that they're constantly asking you to re-buy into the theme.
It's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so, I can see where that is annoying. Yeah.
I did like, much like yourself, I did like the themes that they were playing with, and I think you put it beautifully. I was actually oversimplifying it in a particular way. I think yours is a much better interpretation, is it's just giving everybody the idea to look at what is the one thing in your life. Would this change your life? For the doctor, it does not change his life. He is incredibly happy with the life that he had. And there's a conversation that Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones had, but they were like, why is this guy so important? And James Earl Jones was like, well, he was important for these people.
Yeah. He was a real person, actually, and all of the stories that were told about him were told about him after he died.
Oh, he was a real
person, a real person, and all of the stories that you hear about him, about buying the hats and doing things, they actually were told about him in his local paper.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool. For me, the father-son dynamic and the regret, I thought that was a little heavy-handed.
I agree.
I get it. I understand that was a central theme that they were weaving through, so it made sense, of course, that at the very, very end, his father is going to be walking out of the corn so he can play catch with him. I get it. It was just a little heavy-handed for me. And my cynical brain went, so they don't let Ty Cobb in, but his dad gets to be in the field?
Ty Cobb was a jerk, so apparently. Which, by the way, that was such a Ray Liotta Goodfellas laugh, by the way. That took me out for a moment. I'm like, okay, that's not Shoeless Joe. That's the guy from Goodfellas, when he's laughing there. The thing that I don't care for about this movie is it is way too schmaltzy, way too over the top. Like, they tried to make this It's a Wonderful Life current times at the time. That's what they were going for. So I don't love that. You know, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Oh, I hate that line. It's so trite and silly. But it's the themes that I like, not always kind of the execution of it.
Yeah.
Although I'd be interested in, there's a lot of exposition that comes out about baseball, about the White Sox, that it's him telling his wife, him telling his child. That worked for me. Did it work for you to get all that information out, or was it too monologue-y?
It does work for someone who knows nothing about that scenario. I knew about the Black Sox. I knew about it, so when it would come up, it would just be like, okay, are they telling the correct information, or is it glossing over some of it? I was looking for the facts of what he was saying, not necessarily what he was saying, but yeah, it works. I think it was maybe a little bit too much information, definitely not too little information.
Yeah.
So, and it was a thing for the movie that they had to be those people to do this for the redemption of it. So I understood it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that I always forget every time I go how much how much watching this film is a good time.
Yes.
And you just have to shut your brain off. You just have to shut your brain off.
It's interesting because of the 5 movies, like 4 of them were terribly depressing, and this one was over the top, corny, happy.
Yeah.
So it was weird watching all of them together too.
Do you think this should have been nominated for Best Picture?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Based on the time period and the other films that were around.
Absolutely. I think that it was, the cultural relevance of it is still on today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, the Sea Dogs here in Portland have a Field of Dreams game every year. So I think that it's very relevant today. Of all of these movies, which ones are still being thought of or noted?
Have stood the test of time.
Huh?
Have stood the test of time.
Have stood the test of time, exactly. Yeah. So I think that it has. And I am glad that it was nominated.
Okay. I have nothing else on this one.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the last. My Left Foot. My Left Foot, directed by Jim Sheridan. This was his directorial debut. Adapted by Sheridan and Shane somebody or other from the 1954 memoir by Christy Brown. Stars Daniel Day-Lewis, Ray McAley, Brendy Frickner, Cyril Cusack, Fiona Shaw, Hugh O'Connor, Adrian Dunbar, and Ruth McCabe. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay. And Daniel Day and Brenda Fricker won for Actor and Supporting.
All right. So the most interesting piece of fun fact that I found was that many of the scenes were filmed through a mirror because Daniel Day-Lewis could only do some of the movements with his right foot.
Oh!
So it is actually my right foot. So they had to switch over to make it look like it was his left foot.
Huh.
So I thought that was wild.
That is kind of wild.
Yeah, and good filmmaking.
And particularly what we know, the lengths that Daniel Day, because he is a true method actor,
yes,
that he has done for later films. I'm surprised that he wasn't able to get there, but I mean, that must have just been a physical limitation, because I'm sure he tried really, really hard.
I'm sure that he absolutely did, because he also, as you said, method actor, he made them carry him around on set, he made them feed him on set, he was this character throughout the shoot.
And that does not surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
He in this movie, he's the reason this movie was nominated. The story is fine. This is Oscar bait 100%. It doesn't mean the story doesn't deserve to be told, but at this point we are definitely getting that oversaturation of this is an Oscar movie. Everybody pay attention, and that just gets really tiresome to me.
And his performance was extraordinary.
It was.
His performance was extraordinary. The younger person, too, who played him as a younger man was extraordinary as well.
That was so hard to watch for me.
Oh, as a kid, yeah.
That was so hard.
No, totally agree. So much was in his eyes, too. I mean, it was the physicality, but it was in his eyes, and it was an extraordinary performance.
The fact that Daniel could have to do an Irish accent, but also an Irish accent with like a slight lisp and be like, he could not speak clearly.
Yep.
So to be able to do one is hard enough. To do both at the same time, that's phenomenal.
And I would even layer a third part, because at the beginning of the movie, he really can't be understood by anyone but his mother.
Correct.
And then at the end of the movie, most people could understand him, even though it was very difficult.
Yeah, so he had to evolve.
He had to progress, exactly. Yep. So, yeah.
No, he was phenomenal. Everybody in all of their roles lived up to their roles. I thought Mom was great.
Yes.
Dad, was very good at performing what Dad was, which was some points a very loving father, and other points just a complete dick.
Yep.
The brothers and sisters and the people in the community, I thought everybody did their role. I don't think anybody, in my mind, except for Mom, really stood out. Yep. But everybody fulfilled their role. I loved that it was both, it's kind of heartbreaking, but I took it as a positive thing, that the community and family kind of take him on as like a mascot.
Absolutely.
They take him places. He's not shut in a room and forgotten about. He is like, this is Christy. He's coming with us.
Yep.
And I like that the community did embrace that, even though people would make fun of him. But he was still out and about participating when he could. I mean, he blocks a soccer goal with his head at one point. So.
He was going for it.
Yep.
This is a family as well as a community of limited means, limited education, limited understanding about his disease, and yet they're doing the best they can, and they are embracing him and making him one of their own. And also, I read, I think she had like 21 children, I believe.
Wow.
I think 15 of them lived to, like at least older, if not adulthood, but still 15, 21, good God, this
Yeah.
poor woman. And Brenda Frick was amazing. She was wonderful.
Excuse me. Irish Catholic families, man.
Exactly. The only two siblings that really had anything were, this is Tom and all the girls like him.
Yep.
And this is Sheila, who gets around a little bit and she's gonna have to get married later on. And that's it. No one else made any impact on me in the community, anywhere.
When the doctor shows up, and I can't remember the actress's name, but she's gone on to have a very lengthy...
Fiona Shaw.
Yeah. She's had a fantastic career.
She's great.
She's had a resurgence in like the last 5 or 6 years of being in a lot of things.
She's in Killing Eve right now, or she was recently, yeah.
Yep. So once she arrives, Christy's life then starts to improve.
Yep.
But by improving also, his life, it becomes vastly more complicated.
Yes.
So now he's a dude with heartbreak and cerebral palsy, which is, that's not necessarily a good place to be.
And a drinking problem.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so I liked that. I mean, I know it's factual, but I like that she was introduced so that you could see the progression and you could understand why there was progress. It wasn't just like one morning he woke up and could talk better. Like you got to see this, and of course he becomes attached to her, and she also, in my estimation, doesn't handle that very well.
Oh yeah, no.
She knows that he's absolutely in love, and it's not that she's teasing, but she's just not recognizing the situation, I think.
She actually does take him on as like a pet, almost, rather than the community that embraces him. I like the mascot, I like that as a term. But yeah, she takes him on more as a project, and like, look at this project that I have done so well with. And she's not unkind either, but she's just not doing well with it.
And she basically, by taking him on and his having progress and his becoming a painter and so on, she is able to then snatch a lot of the spotlight for herself at the same time, which, I'm not saying that's why she did it, but I'm saying she fully enjoyed it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Nope, I agree. I didn't see a lot here beyond the performances, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all of that said, I don't like this movie.
Oh really? Interesting, okay.
It's not my kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the artistry. I absolutely appreciate Daniel Day-Lewis's performance.
Wonderful.
But this is not my kind of movie.
Yep. I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed watching it because of the performances, but it was not, it wasn't, there's nothing about the movie itself, the technical pieces, the cinematography. There's nothing about the writing that stood out to me.
This is the kind of story that I would much prefer to read than watch.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And I will happily read this. Watching is a different medium that I don't like to watch this kind of story.
It was painful to watch in a couple of places.
It was.
Yeah.
Okay. I did have one question because I was a little confused. The back and forth in the timeline where he's in his tux.
Yes.
So that's the opening. He's in the tux being wheeled in. And then we cut back to his story, and we learn about his life, and then we cut back to him, and then more, and then we cut back, and that was just distracting to me.
I didn't care for that, yeah. I'm wondering if, and I don't know this for a fact, but did we need to see that he became a successful adult in order to live through the pain of what was happening to him?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Did the audience need to see, it's going to be okay, don't worry, he's going to be okay at the beginning, or you wouldn't have taken the journey with him, because it was a painful, gut-wrenching journey.
That is a really, really good point, and I think you're probably right, that because this is a painful movie to just sit through anyway, if you didn't have that hope, why would you hang in there?
That's what I was wondering, and I don't know that for a fact, but that's the only thing I got to.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you're right, because obviously we don't know, but that would make such sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great performance, don't like the movie.
All right. So this is going to be a tough one, I've got to say. This is a tough one for me, it was 5 movies that I enjoyed watching.
I didn't dislike watching any of them. I'm glad that I watched. I hadn't seen My Left Foot since it came out, and of course, pretentious 20s, like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I have obviously changed my opinion on that.
Apparently.
I'm going to take a guess.
Okay.
That, oh my God, which one won?
Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes, thank you. Driving Miss Daisy won. I'm going to guess that you disagree with that choice.
I do.
And I'm going to say Dead Poet Society.
First I want to ask, do you also disagree with Driving Miss Daisy?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, not Dead Poet Society.
Really?
Nope.
You're going Field of Dreams?
I'm going Field of Dreams.
Oh.
And I want a moment to explain my decision, but I want to hear yours first.
No, I'm going Dead Poets. Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
I am curious because of what you said while we were talking
Yeah.
about that. You did not give out the vibes of you felt this was the best picture of the year. So I'm curious. Go ahead.
So first of all, it is, as I said, a personal favorite.
Yep.
But I tried to put that on the shelf and
Yep.
look at it truly as just a film. And of these 5, it's still, I'm like, the emotional resonance it gives to me and to a lot of people that watch it, I'm like, there has to be something there. So there is a piece of the emotional love for it, as well as the fact that the other 4, even Dead Poet Society, I'd be interested in your thoughts. Dead Poet Society didn't do that much for me. For me, it's all about Robin Williams, who was wonderful, but the things around him didn't make it to a great enough movie for me to be Best Picture.
Okay.
So with Field of Dreams, when you're looking at the beauty of the cinematography, the cast that they pulled together, the overall themes of it, I'm like, and the fact we're talking about it today. I don't think we're talking about Dead Poet Society as much today, although a lot of people know it. Have people seen it?
That's a good question. I think probably, like I said, when we opened that one up, it does have its peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
Since it has come out, it goes through resurgences. People do criticize it quite frequently, but then people will come out of the woodwork saying, I will defend this movie, it's the greatest movie
Yeah.
ever for a while. I personally think that the overall, like checking all of the boxes, this one has more of an emotional relevance to me because we're talking about how to think for yourself and
Yeah.
ways to be able to do that. Whereas the other one, in my head, is just a really well-told baseball story.
Yeah.
Like, I can't connect to Field of Dreams the way that you have.
Have I mentioned my grandfather played for the Yankees?
No.
My grandmother played for the Yankees.
I didn't know that.
So again, big baseball family, but also like, I think we're saying the same thing actually, is like, they were both good movies. That one resonated with you more emotionally, this
Yep.
one resonates with me more emotionally.
Yep.
And I think that they're close.
And we've had this happen a lot discussing
Yeah.
these movies. When you have two movies that are very, very close in all their technical aspects and you're checking all the boxes and you have to make a choice,
Yeah.
you are going to default back to how did I connect with that,
Exactly.
even though we checked all these boxes.
Which did I love the most?
Yep.
Yeah, so can't say anything bad about Dead Poet Society, totally agree with you, but yeah, just what makes me happier.
All right. So we disagreed with each other yet again.
But
Shocker.
not in a violent, angry
No,
way,
no,
which we
just-
have in the past.
Lenny, and you're
Yeah.
still wrong. Yeah, that's it.
All right,
See ya.
bye-bye.